Welcome to my chambers. The hack on the Democratic National Committee, which exposed emails, continues to intrigue. The emails, which were exposed by WikiLeaks, revealed a very strong bias on the part of high officials in the Democratic Party for the candidacy of Hillary Clinton, and a very strong prejudice on the part of the same people towards the candidacy of Bernie Sanders, even though such bias and prejudice had been alleged by Sanders and denied by the Democratic National Committee. It even resulted in the resignation of the chair of the committee as a result of a unanimous request from the members of the committee and the intervention of President Obama himself. But in order to get this issue off the front page, the DNC and the Clinton campaign decided to blame, of all people, the Russians. They accused Vladimir Putin of being in cahoots with Donald Trump and having his intelligence services hack the DNC to expose emails to make Mrs. Clinton look bad and thereby benefit Donald Trump. But the Russians had nothing to do with it, because this week, a 30-year veteran of the National Security Administration, the NSA, the domestic spies who spy on all of us all the time, the former high-ranking NSA official who developed the software that the NSA now uses, which allows it to capture not just metadata, but content of every telephone call, text message, email in the United States of every person in the United States of America. This individual said, guess what? The NSA hacked the Democratic National Committee. Why would the NSA hack the DNC? Because the members of the intelligence community simply do not want Hillary Clinton to be president of the United States, because she doesn't know how to handle state secrets, because some of the state secrets that she revealed use the proper true names of American intelligence agents operating undercover in the Middle East. When they lost their covers, they ran for their lives, and some of them didn't run fast enough and lost their lives. It's very telling that the intelligence community would feel so strongly about Mrs. Clinton that they would attempt to sabotage her campaign to prevent her from becoming their boss. It's also telling that these folks would break American law in order to, in their view, save it. Welcome to my chambers. Does the government work for us, or do we work for the government? Tonight, what if the Constitution no longer applied? What if the whole purpose of the Constitution was to limit the government? What if Congress's enumerated powers in the Constitution no longer limited Congress, but were actually used as a justification to extend Congress's authority over every realm of human life? What if the president, meant to be an equal to Congress, has instead become a democratically elected, term-limited monarch? What if the president assumed that everything he did was legal just because he's the president? What if he could interrupt your regularly scheduled radio and TV programming for a special message from him? What if he could declare war on his own? What if he could read your emails and your texts without a search warrant? What if he could kill you without warning? What if Supreme Court justices no longer looked to the Constitution to determine the constitutionality of a law, but rather simply to what justices who preceded them thought about it? What if the rights and principles guaranteed in the Constitution have been so distorted in the past 200 years as to be unrecognizable by the founders? What if the 50 states were no longer sovereign entities, equals to each other, and parents of the federal government they voluntarily constituted? What if the states were mere provinces of a totally nationalized and fully centralized government? What if the Constitution was amended stealthily, not by constitutional amendments duly ratified by the states, but by the constant and persistent expansion of the federal government's role in our lives? What if the federal government decided if its own powers were proper and constitutional? What if the Constitution were no longer the supreme law of the land? What if you needed a license from the government to speak, to assemble, or to protest against the government? What if the government didn't like what you planned to say, and so it didn't give you the license? What if the right to keep and bear arms only applied to the government? What if posse comitatus, the federal law that prohibits our military from occupying our streets, were no longer in effect? What if the government considered the military an adequate dispenser of domestic law enforcement? What if cops looked and acted like troops and you couldn't distinguish the military from the police? What if you were not secure in your person, in your papers, and in your property? What if federal agents could write their own search warrants in defiance of the Constitution? What if the government could decide when you were and were not entitled to a jury trial? What if the government could take your property whenever it wanted? What if the government could continue prosecuting you until it got the verdict it wanted? What if the government could force you to testify against yourself simply by labeling you a domestic terrorist? What if the government could torture you until you said what the government wanted to hear? What if people running for president actually supported torture? What if the government tortured your children to get to you? What if government judges and government lawyers intimidated juries into convicting the innocent? What if the government could send you to your death and your innocence meant nothing so long as the government's procedures were followed? What if America's prison population, the largest in the world, was a cruel and unusual way for a country to be free? What if half the prison population never harmed anyone but themselves? What if the people had no rights except those the government chose to let them have? What if the states had no rights except to do as the federal government commanded? What if our elected officials didn't really live among us, but instead all had their hearts and homes in Washington, D.C.? What if the government could strip you of your rights because of where your mother was when you were born? What if the income tax was unconstitutional? What if the states were convinced to give up their representation in Congress? What if the government tried to ban you from using a substance in your body that is older than the government itself? What if voting didn't mean anything anymore because both political parties stand for big government? What if the government could write any law, regulate any behavior, and tax any event? The Constitution be damned. What if the government was the reason we don't have a Constitution anymore? What if you could love your country but hate what the government has done to it? What if sometimes to love your country you had to alter or abolish the government? What if Jefferson was right? What if that government is best which governs least? What if I'm right? What if the government is wrong? What if it is dangerous to be right when the government is wrong? What if it is better to perish fighting for freedom than to live as a slave? What if freedom's greatest hour of danger is now? Now, Governor Ventura, it's a pleasure.
It's my pleasure, Judge. Keep up the great work. You're the only voice of reason out there.
Well, thank you very much. I enjoyed reading the book, but it kept me up late at night because there were some things in here that terrified even me, and I call myself the night watchman of the government. What's the lesson of this? What do you want people to learn with 63 secret documents the government doesn't want you to know about?
Well, first of all these documents in this book are in the public domain.
Now,
we broke no laws. They are out there. What I want the people to learn is what was terrifying to me, Judge, and depressing doing this book is that when you read some of these documents, you could substitute the word Nazi and it would work.
What do you mean?
Our behavior. Don't get me.
The United States government. Military, executive branch,
all of it.
Intelligence agency.
Don't get me wrong, we have many great people in government, honest people, patriotic people, but we also have evil in our government.
All right, but we didn't mass exterminate people like the Nazis did. You're talking about an attitude.
Wait. What about going down to Nicaragua and intentionally giving syphilis to 300 to 400 people so we could see if penicillin worked?
That we know about. What about Operation Northwoods?
Well,
tell us about what the military wanted JFK to do in Miami in order to get rid of Castro.
Well, the military wanted to use our CIA and the Joint Chiefs wanted to use our CIA and military to attack certain parts of the United States and make it look like Castro did it so that the country would get up in arms and support an invasion of Cuba.
And what did JFK say about that?
JFK told them to take a hike.
And when JFK told them that he was going to pull troops out of Vietnam because he believed that that was a fruitless and immoral war, and I'm no defender of JFK, though in these two instances I agree with what we now know is his judgment. What did the military do? Or what happened after JFK was murdered that the military and LBJ did to shore up support for the Vietnam War?
Well, they had what was called the Gulf of Tonkin incident. And in 2004, when I was teaching at Harvard, McNamara came through and admitted it never happened, that it was a false flag made-up event, and that's eventually put 58,000 of our generation died, and probably 1 million Vietnamese over something that never occurred.
In the official Gulf of Tonkin incident, and there are documents about it in the book, was that American ships peacefully in the Gulf of Tonkin
were attacked
by North Vietnamese. And
yeah.
in fact, there may have been some ships there, but they weren't attacked.
No.
And on the basis of that, President Lyndon Baines Johnson got the Congress of the United States not to declare war. We haven't declared war since December 8th, 1941.
Correct.
But he got the Congress to authorize him to fight this war against North Vietnam.
Exactly, and that put ground troops in there. That's what happened.
What's the big picture here? Why does the government lie? Why does the government kill? Why does the government hide this from us?
Well, I don't know. You better ask them. You know what else? Do you realize, Judge, that last year the government classified 16 million documents top secret that you and I are not allowed to see? And I challenge that, saying I'm allowed to see everything. You know why? I pay taxes. And I have every right to know what they're spending my tax money on.
Well, we know some of the things they're spending your tax money on because of WikiLeaks and Julian Assange. It is alleged that a private first class named Bradley Manning, who's probably being tortured by the military as we speak, we know there's psychological torture being visited on him, leaked this information to Assange, and Assange leaked it to the world. What do you think of WikiLeaks and Julian Assange?
I think they're heroes. Absolutely. And what troubles me is, what was the first thing Bradley Manning released? He released the video of that helicopter chopper murdering people, just gunning them down. So now he's in prison, but these murderers are walking free.
Well, why isn't he, and maybe this is a legal question that you should be asking me, why isn't he protected by the whistleblower laws? I mean, basically, he revealed that the government committed murder. He should be protected for that revelation, shouldn't he?
Well, because I think that the whistleblower laws, they're there, but they don't exist, if you know what I mean. They put them out there to look good. Right now, whistleblowers are being prosecuted at the highest level ever. And it's clearly they're sending a message. You know what I had happen to me the other night? I had a New York City fireman come up to me and say, "Governor, thank you. You're talking for us on 9/11. I said, "Why don't you firemen that were there speak out?" "We can't. They'll take our retirements. They'll fire us. You're the one that's standing up for us firemen and telling the truth of 9/11.
It's very interesting that people are worried about losing their benefits if they speak the truth. The truth used to be a premium in this country. Now you get punished for it.
Yep.
Now here's the very, very troubling news. The FBI knew that servers were wiped clean, that BlackBerries were smashed and destroyed, and that a laptop was lost in the U.S. mail. The FBI ought to have pursued Mrs. Clinton and the people around her for obstruction of justice, and it did not do so. That is exceptionally distressing. The case against her for failure to secure state secrets is overwhelming. Now the case against somebody, we don't know who, for obstruction of justice is overwhelming, and Megan, the FBI has done nothing. Someone, somewhere, it must be the White House, has restrained the FBI from doing its job.